What's your most fake-sounding story that's actually true? When I was a teenager on a trip to Egypt, my dad was standing on a train platform in Karnak with the group of tourists. They heard a clap sound from the nearby city at some point. A few minutes later, the group noticed that a man in the group with a down jacket seemed to be losing stuffing from his jacket. Also, there was a spent bullet on the ground in between them. The man's arm had been up. Someone, probably a cop, had fired a shot up in the sky, and the bullet had entered the tourist's sleeve at his wrist and exited at his elbow without touching his skin. No one was harmed. True story. I finished a grueling shift at work and wanted to get home as quick as possible. Instead of taking the main road, I took a shortcut down a side street, crossing the park where people got mugged at night time. This was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so I wasn't too worried. Some gangster guy runs up to me really fast and says "Hes so hungry and just wants $1." I tell him I haven't got any and try to keep going, but he keeps going on asking for money. Then the guy notices him a redhead and says I must get picked on a lot. I'm about to roll my eyes, internally expecting a few cheap shots I've heard a million times before, but no. He says hell, show me how to stick up for myself, and he stands next to me and shows me how to jab and punch, so I play along, and then this guy says hell, show me how to dance gangster, so I play along for other laughs, and then he asks for money. I make a show of looking in my pockets, only finding 50 cents and an armband, like the rubber ones we all wore in the 2010s. I gave him that and went on my way. People in my hood are a freaking weird class of degenerate. TL. Doctor got out of a mugging by taking a class in self-defense and gangster dance. That if you knock your tooth out and put it back in the socket, it will grow roots back and save the tooth. In the age of 16, me and my now ex-best friend were hanging out on the steps of my building casually, sipping our Coca-Colas and chatting about bullshit. Suddenly a man in his late 20s, maybe 30s, catwalks like in front of us wearing a black strapped shirt and tight pants. Okay, we don't say anything, we ignore it, and he leaves. After 2 minutes he comes again, now with his shirt on, wearing a pink thong again, catwalking and locking eyes with us. Now mind you, it's fucking 6 o'clock in the afternoon, May in Greece, and the sun goes down around 9 o'clock, and for some reason no neighbors are out, and we have a dude in a pink thong in front of us. We don't say a word and just stay frozen, and he leaves. After 1 minute my grandma shows up from the supermarket, and we ask her if she saw the man, which she replied no, and when we told her her story she laughed and said we imagined it. Still to this day I have zero clue who the fuck that guy was and why he came up to us with a pink thong. No one believes us. I had a literal mob of kids. Literally 90% of the kids in my class in 5th grade tried to beat me up. My principal witnessed this and just stood there speechless, and then later called my parents to inform them of this and basically told them I had never seen anything that bad. Quote, also, a flying kick to the head really fucking hurts. I was DJing in a club and people started lining up to throw money at me. My aunt's car was once hit by a flying cow. She was driving along in Post, Texas, middle of nowhere in West Texas, on her way to Ruidoso, Nanamita. It was dark. She, my uncle and a few of my cousins were in the car. All of the sudden, like out of Monty Python, a cow comes out of the sky and lands on the hood of her car. Turns out the truck in front of her hit it and launched it into the air, where it then landed on my aunt's hood. Everyone but the cow was fine. Long time ago I predicted 1 card out of 52. 5 times in a row. Happened out of the blue after playing poker. After closing at work one day, I was waiting outside my store for my friend. He always would walk me to my car because I worked on a campus and would park off campus. It was around 11, so you never know who's out and about at that time. So I sit down at a table and this guy comes up to and starts to just have conversation. I'm rather friendly, so I didn't think any of it. It even made more sense when he asked me how a class 1 was taking at the time was going. I hadn't mentioned the class, so he had to be in the same one as me. I never talk to people in class, so felt bad for not recognizing him and start to talk about the class and the professor. He's just listening mostly, so I finally ask him, "What do you think of this said class?" And he just goes oh so casually, "Oh, I'm not in that class." To this day I don't know how he knew I was in the class, but long story short, my friend literally sprinted to me when I told him what was happening. I still wonder how he knew about the class. I never saw him after that. And looking back, some of the questions were of things he shouldn't have known. I would like to talk about. I once spent several minutes chatting with Ed Sheeran about the weather and I had absolutely no idea who he was. I definitely should have known, considering that he was headlining at the festival I was at. But I was completely oblivious. This one time I got a free blood test in Thailand. I was working at the edge of a forest in Thailand and I spotted a rusty nail sticking out of a plank of wood in the grass. I decided I better flatten it. So I went to kick it over but had a brain fart and instead stomped on it. I was only wearing thongs at the time, so it went right into my foot and bits of rust broke off into the wound. Anyway, I decided to head to hospital to get it looked at. It was a Friday evening in rural Thailand and the nurses definitely weren't expecting a young foreign lad to wander in. So there was much giggling among the attractive young nurses as one of them grabbed a scalpel and started cutting into my foot. The main nurse was alternatively cutting and squirting the wound with saline solution, all the while chatting excitedly. That is, until she squirted quite vigorously and a jet of my blood bounced back and into her eye. She had safety glasses, but they were sitting on her head. In her excitement she forgot to put them on. I've never seen a room go cold so quickly. Everybody's smiles became frowns and suddenly she wanted to know my sexual history, drug habits, etc. She took my blood, sat me in a corner and left me for 2 hours while she ran the test. Afterwards she kicked me out with little ceremony. Her previously happy face curled with a look of disgust. So yeah, I squirted on a Thai nurse and she hated it. I once had a woman on a packed train push her butt against my crotch. The train was moving, so she was twerking on me. At first I thought, fuck, I feel like a creep. Cause she was so fucking hot with a good looking body and of course yoga pants. To make me even more creepy. But a bit older than me. I was like, to avoid any sexual harassment I'll just turn around when I step away to let people off on the next stop. When I do, she also does the same. Now she starts grabbing my sides as if she's falling over, then reaches towards the little ledge by the doors near the last seat in a row. NYC subway. At least that's what I thought, until she puts her hand on my waist and then barely gets her fingers under my waistband when I pull away. I look at her like WTF and she smiles. Her hand was blocked by the divider so no one saw it. I was trying to move away and stand somewhere else and she says, "Where you going, cutie?" in soft tone. I'm like, WTF is happening? I didn't even know what to say. I just got off at the next stop and hopping in a cart about 2 carts down. No one ever fucking believes me. But I definitely understand how women must feel when a man looks at them in any way at a public location. Stay safe ladies, and I fucking get it. Like, how do I even complain that I was sexually harassed by a woman on the train? I should be dead from a snowmobile accident. Long story short, I jumped off the sled at the last minute. All the witnesses saw was the sled slam into a tree at 60 miles per hour. They didn't see me skidding on my helmet for 100 feet. Walk back and tell them I'm fine. They were digging snow looking for my body under the sled. Nope. Here I am. I'm fine. I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance that had the Karate Kid playing. The two nurses that were tending to me were freaking gorgeous as well. In the hospital I get treated to by two more just as stunning nurses. And a whole bunch of chic filler sandwiches. Later that day the nurses bring in a Nintendo GameCube with various Mario games. Even got to play with one of the nurses for a bit. I went home and attended school the next day. In the age of about 12 I saw a white car driving near our children's camp next to our village river. So we followed it and observed the man from our camp. The man got out of the car and seemed to make his gun ready sub-mountain a little hill. On the hill at a Holy Mary statue there stood a woman with these walking sticks. The man shoot on the woman with his deer rifle. He did not hit her but she was shocked and ran into the forest. He packed his things and drove away. Nobody believed us. While hiding in the bed of my buddy's truck, he sped off and I stood up to surf it. He started trying to buck me off. I fell out, did a backflip, caught the edge of the truck with my hand before he slammed on the brakes and launched me off the side of the truck. Somehow I landed on my feet and was able to run with the speed. Completely unscathed. If I didn't have all my high school friends as witnesses, several people telephoned me, they wouldn't believe the story. We were visiting my sister-in-law and her family for the weekend. Wife, son, me and the pet can terrier Layla. I get up earlier than my wife, so I go out and get coffee and let the dog out to the fenced backyard. Go back to my coffee and a little while later my wife gets up. She says she had the weirdest dream that Layla got hit by a car. It was a red station wagon and it took off after hitting her. She said, "Where is Layla anyway?" I said outside and went to go let her in. Called and nothing. Went out and she was nowhere to be found. I scream back inside and say to wife that Layla got out somehow. She and her sister are freaking out now. I said I'll get the car and ride around, you guys go walk around. I drove around for a while they were walking, screaming out the window for Layla. After 10 minutes or so I see my wife and her sister up ahead. I see my wife is holding Layla. They get in the car and she said they found her in the backyard of a house down the street and the owner came out and said he saw the little thing get hit by a car. My wife asked what color and he said a red station wagon. Goosebumps, baby. She was just banged up good and had some cuts but had to stay overnight at the vet's for observation. Probably the time I was pissing off a dirt pile on a beach construction site with my friend staring at a full moon. I looked over at my friend and told him I think something great is going to happen in 10 seconds. Later I saw something big come up on shore. I thought it was a drug bale so I ran to check it out and told my friend not to move. Lo behold, it was a leatherback sea turtle. Soon after 2 cops show up to tell us the beach is closed and we tell them about the sea turtle. And they watch it lay eggs with us. Crazy night, man. I was 18 and a senior in high school. Once got picked up by an amateur model on the street. We were walking home in the same direction and I had my headphones in. She decided to strike up a conversation because she liked my leather jacket. My glasses promptly exploded. Spring broke, and it started pouring it down, so she offered me shelter in her accommodation since I was still a good bit away from mine, and long story short, I ended up staying the night. I was like 12, and I rode my bike up to the railroad tracks up by the grocery store. And there were like 5 kids. 15, 16-ish. There were 3 girls at first. And they were like, "Why are you up here, kid?" And I said something like, "Looking for cool stuff by the railroad track." Being 12. And they had a bottle of blue raspberry vodka, which they were like, "We stole it from Kroger." And they asked me if I wanted some. Again, being 12. How could I refuse? I took a regular sip. You know, like a soda. It burned a little. And they had vapes, openly smoking. This was in broad daylight, right next to a bunch of houses in Indiana. And they were like, "All right, that's enough, we don't want to send you home stumbling drunk," and laughed. I've told that story to many people. They never believe it. But it happened. I saw them in the McDonald's nearby when I was like 14. They waved at me. TL. Doctor. I drank stolen alcohol when I was 12 from underage kids. And no one believed me.